to look in the mirror and go, what do I need and what do these people that matter to me need? What are the rhythms to their lives that are important to them now at their age and stage that you talked about before? And how do I build this business to serve that?
Hello, mompreneurs. It's Angela Mishuli, your host of the Good Enough Mompreneur Podcast, where we talk about everything motherhood and business, minus the perfectionism. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode today, or if you're new here, welcome. Thank you so much for your time, and I know you are going to love this episode with business and success coach Sarah Greener. She is from New Zealand, so you're going to love her accent. I could have talked to her for days, and you're really going to feel her energy and her passion for helping women really find more time in their business and create a life around their business so they no longer have a business that is running them. So for many business owners, we feel like we've never got quite enough time for the things that count, like our family in those important moments. And today, my guest, Sarah Greener, has developed frameworks based on her own business journey to help busy, stressed, and overworked business owners reignite their passion for business by helping them work on their businesses rather than in their business. But before we get to the interview, I want to invite you to do two things. Number one, please go and check out my new website called mombusinesscoach.com. You can learn more about me. You can find out information to reach out to me, links to all the podcast episodes under the podcast page. And then also, number two, I would be so grateful if you find this episode helpful, if you could leave the podcast a review wherever you listen to podcasts. So I had to get those two plugs in there really quickly. And without further ado, here is my interview with the lovely Sarah Greener. Thank you, Sarah, for joining me. You're a business and success coach, and you're a speaker who inspires women to figure out what's next and puts them back in control, which I love. We have a similar mission. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast. Welcome.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me. So as you can tell from the accent, I am obviously from New Zealand. So I am based in the beautiful Bay of Islands and been in business in New Zealand for over 15 years now. My husband and I run a tourism business here in the Bay of Islands. And over the years, I collected a whole lot of businesses and maybe did too much. No, I definitely did too much.
Right.
And so at one point we had like 5 businesses. And I was working lots of hours, and I'm a mom and a wife, and I was giving lots back to the community, and I kind of got stuck in working lots of hours. So I was working 60 hours was a good week. And so I was really out of control, right? My businesses were driving us, or driving me more importantly. And so eventually I figured out that needed to stop, and I needed to decide how did I want my life to look and how did I want my business to look? And then started working towards that. And over time, I've learned that wasn't a Sarah problem. It was often a woman in business, because we wear so many hats, and we often come from a place of service, and we get stuck in this kind of hamster wheel of doing everything. And so I really wanted to find a way to make sure women in business could get back the freedom that they really wanted when they got started. Like I wanted to have a life where I could take the day off and go on school camp with Scarlett and go to her awards ceremonies and bunk off for a Friday afternoon and have date with my husband. And I didn't have that. And so that's what I have built. And so now I spend my time working with women to first and foremost get them back a day a week, and then ultimately help them build a business that serves them rather than them working like a slave for their business.
I think that is such a crucial message, because once you get the encouragement or the courage to actually start a business if you have made the mistake of not properly planning and starting it the right way. It will soon begin to control you. So what do you think are some of the mental blocks that we need to overcome when starting our businesses to create that ideal business that serves us instead of us serving the business, like you said?
Yeah, so I think the ones that I really focus on is that hard work equals success. So I'm certainly of an era where I was taught that if I worked hard at school, I'd get good results, and then I could go to university, and then I could, in our household, it wasn't get a job, it was build a business. But for a lot of people, it's then go to university, and then after university, get a job. And so hard work equals success. And I think somewhere along the line, we have this disconnect in our brains that makes us go, it's not the hard work, it's the more work I do, the more likely I am to be successful. And there are definitely seasons where we have to do more work. Like you talk about just getting started and things like that. Like it's getting the plane off the ground requires more effort and energy than once it's flying, right? And so there are seasons for it, but I think sometimes we get stuck in this cycle of thinking that I have to keep doing what I did in that first season over and over again. That was certainly it for me. And so hard work equals success is going to keep you really stuck. You have to get out of that and go, how do I know what is the right work, and how do I know what sort of business I need to build for it? I think the other thing that really keeps us stuck is that I need to know what the right thing is to do. I need to know all the steps to get me from here to there before we've even started. And so while we're busy looking for the right thing, the perfect thing to do, we get stuck. And it's kind of that perfectionism thing, whereas all action is going to move us forward. All action is either going to have us going in the right direction, or it's going to teach us something about our business that we potentially don't want to repeat in the future. Right. That's the other one, is probably the big one, is that you can't work your way out of a problem, like just hard work your way out. You have to be doing the right aligned work, but also not getting yourself so stuck that you can take no action.
Right. One of the things that I like to really focus on is not only learning about the steps, but kind of attaching that to how you should feel or how you were feeling at that time, because I think that that's where we really connect. You can hear things all day, but once you hear like, this is how if you're feeling like X, that's how you know you need a reset. So at that point where you were feeling overwhelmed, and that's a feeling in itself, what was going on for you emotionally that kind of just was like, okay.
Yeah, I think the challenge was I thought what I was doing was normal. And because I'd done it for a long time, so I was 25 when we started in the business here, and we bought the business in December 2007. So for any of you who remember, we went into the GFC in 2008 here in New Zealand. And so we bought a tourism business going into GFC. So working hard was what got us through that. Like we just heads down, thumbs up, did the work. And it was that season, right? And so I never stopped to go, I need to change gears at some point and go, okay, how do I remove myself from this business? And so it was normal. And so I had a lot of stuff going on underneath the scenes for me, that I'm not good enough. I haven't worked hard enough. I could just do more. And so you start to feel anxious and worried that you're not doing enough, and that overwhelm that, well, I'm not doing enough, but it's never enough anyway, because I feel like I'm working all these hours and doing all these things, but nothing's moving the needle. And so there was a lot of emotional stuff, and it's layers upon layers, right? And you can only address them one at a time. You can't like peel off all the layers of us in one fell swoop. You have to kind of go, okay, well, here's the first layer of not good enough, Sarah. Let's peel it off. And how does that make you feel?
But owning a business will do that, man. It will you can't run from it. It will find you.
Best personal development journey you're ever going to go on is doing something that's constantly outside your comfort zone, because the moment that you're inside your comfort zone, a new challenge comes along that sits outside it. And so you have to go to the next level to find it. So layers and layers. I'm trying to think what would have been the first one. I think it was guilt, probably was the biggest emotion for me. And I think being a mum, it was that when I was at home, I was guilty because I wasn't at work doing the things I should be doing at work. And when I was at work, guilty because I wasn't doing the things I should have been doing as a mum. And so constant.
Mom guilt, yes. Mom guilt is a problem. Yeah.
Real thing. And so working through that and kind of figuring out, and for me, the big shift was, well, what does being a great mum look like for me and the other person that this actually matters to, which is Scarlett? And so, I had to go and say, like, what does great look like? If I was being a great mum, what would that look like? And none of the stuff that society said was on my list were the list that Scarlett gave to me. Right. So I was like, I'm racing around trying to fulfill everyone's expectations around what a great mum looks like. And Scarlett doesn't want any of those.
That's really awesome. So you had a conversation with her and said, what is it that you would like from me?
Yeah. And game changer. So game changer for me, like a really significant one was birthday cakes had always been a surprise in our house. And so we have this book. It's called the Australian Woman's Weekly. It's Australian, but we use it in New Zealand. And it has all these incredible cakes in it, right? Before Pinterest and Instagram was a thing. And you used to pick your cake and Mum would make it so it was a surprise. And it would be surprised there in the morning. And she would have stayed up all night baking this thing and icing it and putting it together. I am not a baker and I'm not particularly creative. And so I used to do this for the days leading up to Scarlett's birthday, stress about it and perfect icing. And of course, she didn't pick out of the Australian Woman's Weekly cookbook anymore. She'd pick off Instagram or Pinterest or something on the internet, which makes it 10 times harder. And we had the conversation. She was like, but I want to do it with you. I don't want you to bake the cake and make a surprise. I want to help bake the cake and I want to help ice the cake. And I was like, so I let go of my expectations and just did it with her. It was actually kind of fun. So, and it took away a whole lot of expectations. That's just one example where I was like, what we want and what the world says I should do, two different things. And so then I started looking at what do we want from a business point of view? There's a lot of you must grow, get more and more employees, more and more customers, more and more whatever. Or what's the general theme? And when I sat back and looked, I was like, I don't want a team of 90 employees. I want a team of maybe 10. Like that feels like enough to me. And I don't want to have a big office building that's my place where I have to go to work and pay and stuff. I want it to be location free, and I want all of my team to be able to do the things that light them up and have time to do that. But it took me a long time to go, actually where I need to start to get rid of the guilt is to figure out actually what I want, because the guilt was coming from external forces, society's beliefs about what I should be doing, family beliefs, community beliefs, and I was taking them all on board as my own. And I had to go, well, hang on, what is it that I want and my family unit wants, not what the world tells me I need to want.
That is one of the most important things that I think you can do. You have to start at why and what. Like if you're just going to throw everything at the wall and see what sticks just because you want to start a business and have flexibility and more money or whatever, that's just, you're going to find yourself in a situation where it controls you and you're going to have to figure it out. You're going to be better for it.
I mean, look, you'll learn some stuff, right? I've learned a lot of stuff along the journey, but I don't know that I want everyone to go through that. Like there's a lot of mistakes that I made there. I don't want everyone to go through that. Right. I look back and I missed out on a lot. Scarlett's 10 now. Her first 5 summers, I didn't have a summer with her. And let's be honest, she's 10, so I'll be lucky if I get another 8 summers with her, because she's going to be a teenager. She's going to want to go and do things with her friends, not with her parents. So, it's those things where you go, okay, well, what's the life I'm trying to build, and how does my business fit into that and support that? Whereas so often we end up in a place where your business is dictating to you what sort of life you're going to end up with around the outskirts of it, because your business just expands to fill all the time you gave it. and eat all the money as well, right?
Right. Yep. Oh my gosh. I mean, that is just so many good tidbits of information there because, yeah, whatever, if you just give unlimited money and time to something, that's what it'll take.
Always.
Right? Oh man, good stuff. So yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, we definitely we get addicted to being busy. I mean, I don't know what it's like in New Zealand. I haven't had the privilege to be there, but it's very much a part of American culture to even at a very young age have your children in tons of activities and give them a very adult schedule and ask them what college they're going to go to at the age of 10, and they're supposed to have it all figured out. So, I mean, how is it that you help your clients begin to understand that addiction? Because we fight for our beliefs, whether they're good for us or not. So, yeah. Right?
So the problem with our beliefs is we believe them. Right. Yeah. Fundamentally, that's the moment that someone says, I believe, you just know that, they're going to back that with their whole body, their whole being, right? So, yeah, problem with our beliefs is we believe.
Right.
And so I think it's very much about it. You have to allow people to see it for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell a client, I couldn't come to you, Angela, and go, well, look, you're busy. Like, when I ask you, how are you? Your answer is busy. Like, that's not successful. That's just busy. That's just constantly on the move, doing activity for the sake of activity rather than doing something that moves the needles for you in your life and your business.
Right.
And so it's not something you can tell people. They have to come to that moment themselves. And so we go through a very simple exercise where we talk about the ideal week advantage. And you can't create anything if you can't imagine it. And then you need to go, for me, I say you need to go a step further. You need to get it out of your head and onto a piece of paper some way. So we look very clearly at what does your current week look like? Where's your time going? How are you spending it? What's stealing your time? And then we look at how would you like your week to look? And so we by looking at both of those, we can see what the difference is between the two. And fundamentally, I always say to people, the difference between the two is on your current week, you are spending most of your time on activities that are stealing your future. And if you look at your ideal week, you are spending far more time on activities that are creating your future, both in your business and in your life. And when we look at that, there's actually a big value void between the two. Future stealers tend to be low value jobs, low value things that we do out of obligation or out of expectation or out of, I don't value my own time. And future creators are things that create the future we want. They create the relationships we want to have. They create the clients we want to have. They create the wealth that we want to have, the health that we want to have, right? So a future creator could be everything from having great sales processes to ensure you get the right clients through to looking after your body in terms of getting it out and moving once a day to making deliberate time to spend with your significant other or your children because you want to have them in your life for a long time, right? They're future creators.
Right.
Yeah. And so when people start to see this value void in their lives, they can see that often it's their business that's creating a lot of the future stealers. Life does too, but there's a lot of future stealers that are created by life. And we look at it, there are very quick ways to get rid of it. Like some of them you can just stop doing and the world doesn't notice. Like I was amazed how much work I was doing in my business that when I stopped doing it, one, it didn't drop our sales or our profitability, and two, no one noticed.
What were some of those things? I'm curious.
Yeah, so definitely being in my emails, being in my inbox, being in any sort of inbox for way too long. So often my whole morning would be taken up with dealing with other people's stuff, whether that was customers and clients or suppliers or employees or, you name it. There were a whole lot of people that constantly needed something from me as the business owner. And a lot of that was about I'd positioned myself as the font of all knowledge, the expert. And so my team they weren't empowered to be able to go, well, I can take care of that for Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
They always had to come and ask me before they took any action, because that was where all the information was stored.
Mm-hmm.
And once I let go of the fact that I could empower my team to make good decisions, once I had some key frameworks in place, my workload dropped. And the other thing was I stopped being in inboxes before lunchtime. So my mornings are very focused and deliberate. And then if I need to get into my inbox, I go there after lunch.
That is a great tip. Yeah. I mean, there are so many things that we feel like we have to respond right away and everybody needs us. And, it's not that immediate. When you start setting those boundaries, you start feeling more relieved, like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Everybody survived.
That's exactly it. That was exactly what I was about to say, was no one's emailing you because someone's dying. Like if someone's sending you an email because they're like, hey, we need an ambulance because this person is having a heart attack, like wrong form of communication, right? So there's nothing in your inbox that if you left it for 24 to 72 hours, maybe even a week, that is going to be a massive problem for anyone in terms of like, will they live? If that's going on, someone at the very least is going to call you, and hopefully they're going to call actually the emergency services rather than you, because potentially there'll be more help. Unless, of course, you're in that business, right? I'm not in that business. But yeah, there's a whole lot of noise there where people are going, Angela, give me your attention. And it's really noisy when that's about their priorities, not about your priorities. And so when you can step out of it and go, I'm going to work on my priorities first and come to your priorities second, like you say, lots of freedom, lots of relief, and the overwhelm immediately reduces because there's just less to do in that first half of your day.
And it's funny how a simple thing like that nobody ever considers. Like, it is mind-blowing. Like, what do you mean? Like, not respond to every little phone call and text, and turn off all the notifications, make sure
look, and it sounds really simple and easy, but we're addicted to it, like you said. Mm-hmm. And they are specifically designed from a psychology point of view to grab our attention and make it a priority. It makes a noise or it's a particular color in a certain place. Like you think about social media, it's like constantly being updated to hold our attention and keep us there. And so it's no wonder that we're, stuck in that noise. So you really do have to take control of it. And like you say, turn all those notifications off.
Right. So we talked about some of the beliefs that kind of keep us addicted to being busy. What are some of the limiting beliefs that either you had to deal with yourself or you see with your clients on, they have to cross this threshold to be able to create more of the life that they want with their business in it?
Yeah. There's probably some themes. So we've talked about that I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy. Right. There's definitely a theme around those set of beliefs. Everyone's languaging around it slightly different depending on their upbringing. Mm-hmm. And out of that comes a whole lot of things, right? Like I'm not good enough. I'm not working hard enough. So more hours. I'm not worthy of help. That's a big one. One that I had to really battle with, and I see it in my clients a lot, that I was raised as a strong, independent woman. I'm the eldest of 4 girls. I grew up on a farm. People always used to say to my dad, don't you wish you had boys? My dad was like, my girls can do anything your boys can do, smarter. and like, it was like a point of pride for him that his girls, like literally, we could do all of the jobs. The problem with that was, as a strong, independent female, you just figured it out and you got it done and you never asked for help. And so that underlying became, well, if I ask for help, that's a failure. That's I've let myself down and I've let other people down and I'm not being that strong, independent woman that I've been raised to be. Where the truth of the matter is no one got where they are. Anyone you look at that's successful is always got a community around them, a support network, a team that they have been able to get help from. And so, there's that one, I'm not good enough, which shows up in lots of different ways. It's probably a big theme. And then the other one is kind of, well, Sarah, I don't have time to stop and think and plan and vision and create all of that stuff. Look at my big long to-do list.
Yes.
I don't have enough time to do that. Right. And the challenge with that is, yes, in this moment, the way that you're operating, that is absolutely true. And you've got a bias towards that, and you will continue to find evidence to back that up. But if I said to you, Angela, give me $1 today, and next week I'll give you back 167, would you take that investment?
I would.
Yeah. So if I say to you, you need to take 1 hour each week to deliberately think about, plan, and create next week, the next 7 days, so that you've got control over 167 of those hours, because one of those hours is going to go to plan the next week. What would that change in terms of your life? Because now you're going to start investing more and more of that in those future creators. Not all at once. Like, you might just get 1 hour back the first week and 2 hours the second week. But it's like that, the snowball methodology, right? Like, you're starting off with this tiny little snowball, and once you get it rolling, it's going to pick up momentum. And then you get to this place where there's just more and more things that give you back more and more time, until you get to the place where you're like, oh, I've got all this free time. What should I fill it up with?
No.
And then you want to be, right? Yeah, don't go back there. But you know what I'm saying? Like, when we get to that place where we're like, wow, my week's really spacious. Yeah. And now your job is to not start jamming things back in.
Right. Enjoy it. I know.
Yeah. Have a wonderful life, right? But that's the other thing I get, is like, people are like, I just don't have time to do it. And my question would be, you really can't afford not to, because your future is, you're getting a life and a business by default. And that will keep happening, because people will always ask more of you. Other people will always have you, your time, energy, and focus. And if you always say yes, they're always going to take it. And so until you set those boundaries on it by deciding how you want to spend your time, you're never going to get back in control of it.
Right. I mean, and it's all about, what are you prioritizing? Like, it's not that you don't have the time, it's just not your priority. And it needs to be moved up on the list. For sure.
Yeah. And so I guess you've got to talk about, like, running your business and building your life as like the buffet, right? Like, the buffet of life and business is always there. In my experience, been doing this for a long time, 15 plus years running businesses, an opportunity has never just knocked once. Like, I don't have to quickly grab it right now. If it's the right thing for me, it will come up again and again and again. And so learning to go, well, Sarah, I didn't need to pile my plate like so high I would never eat it in 4 sittings. I could actually just take the 3 or 4 things I need for right now. And the thing will still be there when I come back around. It might even be better, fresher. It might have come out of the kitchen more recently for me to come back to it. And if you think about it like that, it starts to allow you less of that stress, like, I don't have to grab it right now.
Right. And no, I think that that's a wonderful piece of advice. And it's so true, just thinking about my own business journey, that it absolutely. And I think you're correct that if you're not on it right away, actually, it just kind of blossoms into something that you can't even ignore or pass up, that it's so great. I love that. Yeah. And it's, yeah, so much good stuff, Sarah.
I love it. And I'm going to say the third theme is I can't afford it. And the third, and what I mean by that is, I'm just going to do it myself because my time's free. And that we do that when we start, because when you start out on your journey, you're everything. You're the sales team and the marketing team and the accountant, and you do all of it because that's where you start. But also at some point have to go, okay, now this is not my area that I'm really good, and I'm actually slower and clunkier at it. I can't afford not to. Because when we start looking at, those are $50 and below jobs or $20 and below jobs, and actually I can create of value $1,000, $10,000 in an hour. Why am I doing all that work? And so finding people that are better than you, are experts in areas, are really, really valuable. But you have to get past that, my time's free. You have to value your time. You have to value your worth, because if you don't do it, no one else will. And you'll get stuck doing things where you like the outcome, but you don't like the activity that you have to do to get the outcome, like cleaning your house.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. Great tips. So one of the things that's also part of my mission is to rid the world of this myth that you can't be a good mother and an entrepreneur. I hear it all of the time. And so I would like to hear your opinion on that myth. And, personally, I talk to so many moms who feel that it in fact makes them a better mother and partner. Would you agree?
Yeah, so absolutely, if you're willing to learn the lessons.
Right.
I think it can do both. Because like we've said, it's the greatest personal development journey you're ever going to go on is running a business. And that's developing you as the individual. And so that doesn't change when I go and be a mum or be a wife. Like I'm the same person. Those skills and tools are still with me. If you're not prepared to do the work and go on the journey, then I think you can absolutely do the opposite. What I will say is that we can't do mum and business owner the way someone who is stay-at-home mum would do mum.
Yes. I mean, like changing your expectations and...
So I can't cook all the meals, do all the shopping, do all the cleaning, do all the school drop-offs and the pickups, be at every activity, do baking for every bake sale, volunteer on every community. Like I cannot do everything and still run a business. I can get to a point where I could be like that, but I would have had to start my business at 20, not 25. And I would have had to have a full 10-year journey before I started having children. And I didn't have that. And for a lot of people, they might not even start their business till after the children are in the picture. And so you have to start thinking about the work that is created in the home in the second shift as everybody's work. We all live here. We all create the workload. So we all do the work. And when we start thinking about that, is that my home team, and I have a home team, as a home team, and we all do our bit, we think about it differently. And so both my husband and I run businesses, and we both work in those 30 to 40 hours a week. And neither of us love to clean. And so how are we going to figure out how to do that without it being an argument between us, or it's landing heavily on one or the other, or, training our children to be cleaners so that that's helpful for them, right, for future life. So we pay for a cleaner, and we started it with, once a fortnight, I think we started with. Yeah, once every 2 weeks. I have to say what a fortnight is because people say, Carol, what's a fortnight? And I was like, once every 2 weeks. And then I realized that's a Kiwi thing. It must be a New Zealand thing or a...
I think they say that in the UK too.
UK, okay, there you go. And now our cleaner comes 3 times a week. So she comes every morning, she does the dishes, she does the laundry. But we had to get to that point, right? Because she's faster than me. Like, I get distracted. I'm like putting the clothes away and I'm like, oh, I haven't worn that for ages. Or I'm like vacuuming. I'm like, maybe the furniture would look better in a different location while I'm doing this vacuuming. Like you get distracted. Like Rochelle comes in, she cleans the whole house and she's in and out in an hour and a half. She's hung the laundry out. She's put the other laundry away. She's done she's mopped the floors. She's vacuumed the floors and she's out.
Right. Like she's not no attachment. She's just
zero.
That's awesome.
So, we have to let go of the fact that I can mum the way my mum did, or mum the way society expects me to. And that means doing all the work, and not just the physical work. We also do all the mental load as well. You're doing all the meal planning. You're doing all the, when does so-and-so have to be at after school activities or birthday parties and buying, if you're carrying all that mental load, man, there's no wonder you're feeling overwhelmed and exhausted. It's like, I mean, and there's been some studies that have done where they've looked at what a stay-at-home mum would do. And if you paid someone to do it, it'd be like $150,000 salary at a minimum. And actually it's 3 full-time jobs.
Right.
So we have to think differently about how we do it. And one of the reasons we run businesses is to create income and create wealth. We need to start putting aside some of that income and that wealth to make running the home and being a mum easier, so that we get the fun bits of it and not the work bits of it.
Right. So my next question was going to be about what you do to help you try and find balance, which you kind of alluded to. But first, I would just like to, my opinion is there is no balance.
Oh,
it is like you're chasing something that is elusive, and you're going to have different times where you have different focuses. But do you have any tips for how you help to achieve that for yourself?
I don't live a balanced life. It's a total load of crap. And sorry, am I allowed to say that?
No, yeah.
And so for me, when I think about balance, people talk about work-life balance, and generally they're going, work is hard and something you have to do and it's negative, and life is stuff you do that's positive and amazing and awesome, and that you have to keep that in balance because you've got to have the crappy with the good. And if you don't have enough good to balance out the crappy, that's when you get out of balance. And I look at that and go, that sounds terrible. Like there is something about that makes me go, well, that sounds like a life that I want to live. So my goal is to live what I call an aligned life. So I know what my personal highest life priorities are, and I live aligned with that. And my goal is to not do any of the things I don't like doing. Like there is obviously an age and stage that we go through, and sometimes there's work that we have to do that we don't love. But if I don't love it, or it's not serving future Sarah in a greater way, I don't want to do it. So to give you some examples, I don't love cleaning, so I pay a cleaner. I also don't love cooking, so we have like a meal service that comes that does all the meal planning for you, and all the ingredients will come, so it just makes life easy.
Yep.
I love to cook for an occasion where I could go to the markets and shop, and if you're coming to my house for dinner, and it was an experience, and I enjoy doing that as a experience for you and I to have dinner together. Right. I don't enjoy the mundane, like the whole family needs feeding 3 meals a day every day, otherwise they starve, right? That bit of it I don't like. And so we outsource that. And so my job here is to slowly but surely pay someone else, outsource things. I mean, Dan Martell just released his book, Buy Back Your Time. That's exactly what you're doing. Buy back your time from the things that you don't love doing. I love a clean house. I don't love the cleaning I have to do to get the clean house. So how can I get the outcome without putting the work in is what I'm after. And so the same thing, there's like things that I need to do as a parent that is really high value to me and high value to Scarlett. And then there are other things that aren't so high value. So I don't rock her or to school and pick her up every day. So she catches a bus, and she can get off the bus and she can walk home. She's old enough to do that now. If we can carpool with other parents that are going to drama or music or swimming or whatever her current school activities is, I don't need to drive her there and back every time. Do I like some time in the car with her? Yes, but I don't want to spend 20 hours a week being taxi driver mum when there are better ways to use my time. What I will not outsource, though, is quality time with her, talking about the things that matter to her, having big conversations like we've had this week around how is she feeling about going back to school, and she's into intermediate, so year 7 here now, and so now she's going to move around, like she's a bit worried about some of that stuff. Like I'm not outsourcing that. That's my job. I'm not outsourcing playing whatever board game she wants. I'm not outsourcing cuddles and talking about what we're grateful for in the day. And it's the same thing in my life. Like I can outsource the food and get healthy food in, but I can't outsource my healthy body, right? I still have to go to the gym, and for me, I go to the gym because I enjoy it mostly, but like I can't outsource the burpees and the, running that I need to do to have a fit and healthy body, so that when Scarlett's 20 and I'm 50, we can still run around and go and do things together, like go freediving and snorkeling and doing big walks in different countries. So, for me, it's about alignment. I'm totally in agreement with you. You need to know what matters most to you, and you need to know what future you're building, so you can ultimately just do the things that either light you up or build the future that you're after. Otherwise, pay someone else to do it all. Like that was the whole
Right.
point, freedom, right?
Right. And it's not going to stay the same. It's going to change.
Oh, that one is really important. Like the
Yes.
seasons of life. Like I look back at 25-year-old Sarah, where she was with her just become fiance, and we lived on board the boat, which was the business. And like we lived and breathed it. We ate it. Like we even ate the leftover dinners. Like we didn't buy much food. We had no money because we'd bought a business, right? So we would eat the leftovers from what the clients had eaten from that cruise. Like if I ever see another cold sausage again, it will be too soon, right? But that was the life that we lived, and that was the season.
Yeah.
And then in my 30s, I've had the pleasure of becoming a mother, and we've bought our first home, and we've done those, and that's a different season.
Mm-hmm.
And your children, particularly in those early days, require a lot more of you physically than like at age 10, Scarlett requires a little less, And so now we're going into the next stage where I imagine the requirement of the quantity of time will get less. The quality of time will go up. It will be more deep and meaningful conversations about who does she want to be and how does she want to create that. And that's what you're saying. And then she'll leave home, because we've had this conversation at 18. Like, you're out, child. We love you, but you'll be an adult at that point. We're raising a functioning adult here, so you're out. And then life will change again. And so then I'll have this more spacious around. I still want her in my life, but she's not going to be living under my roof. And, I'll have more time for myself, and I have more time for my husband, and maybe I have more time for my business again, if that's what I want to invest in. But it's definitely a season, and everyone's season's different. We only have one child. Other people are blessed with more, so, and that's different, right? So the seasons will extend in different ways for different people. So I say kind of every 5 to 10 years, it feels like there's another chapter for me where I'm like, oh, we've got to this end of the chapter. And now what's the next chapter? And it's slightly different theme, slightly different energy to it, slightly different way I need to spend and invest my time. And I think that's really important that you acknowledge that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's just, just when you think you've got it figured out, you just have to learn to pivot and shift with the next thing. And that's the beauty of it, honestly, is just embracing that. I mean, it's a surprise. It's all a surprise. You just have to surrender and just go for it. So I usually ask moms, how would they feel had they, where would they be had they not started a business? But I think the more appropriate question for you is, where do you think you would be had you not made the necessary changes to be in power in your business?
Good question. And it makes my chest get tight just thinking about it. Burnt out, divorced, and broke, probably. Like, seeing my child week about with my now ex-husband, I really work on that. If you work 60 to 100 hours on your business, the only thing you're doing, like for us, the only thing that Johnny and I did was we shared a bed. We were like flatmates. Like when you talk about ships passing in the night, we never had date night. We barely had time to talk about being a parent, it was just, there was none of that. I certainly wouldn't have the relationship I have with my daughter. She would not have someone role modeling good health. My health was taking caring. I wouldn't have I have a relationship where when something's wrong with Scarlett, or something's going on for her that she's challenged by, she brings it to me, or she brings it to Johnny to have that conversation. We wouldn't have had that relationship at age 10 with her if I hadn't made those changes back when she was 5. And yeah, like I say, it makes my chest feel tight to think about. I just don't even want to think about the worst case scenario. If I hadn't made those changes, I was running myself and my marriage and my family into the ground in a very fast way.
Yeah, I think that's really an important lesson. If somebody is in their business or starting a business, to think ahead and really think about that could be the consequence if you do not surrender to getting help, when you're feeling that way, and I think just those feelings, because I had a similar situation that pushed me to start a business because my kids were feeling that way while I was working for corporate. It was like they couldn't handle me working so much and being on call 24 hours a day. And it just, we had to make that change. But I definitely, that story resonates with me because I was there too. And so I didn't want to create a business that mimicked that. And it's so easy to fall into that trap. So I just want people to understand how important it is to reach out to a coach. There is help. I mean,
Yeah,
it
and I
doesn't
think
have to be hard.
no, and there will be times when it is hard. Like I'm not gonna give you rose. I don't want to give anyone rose-colored globes. Like being in business, being an entrepreneur, there is times when anyone that's been in business for the last since 2020 experienced some of those external factors that make things hard. Like there's a whole lot of businesses in Auckland at the moment that are dealing with flooding. Like that is through no fault of their own that's happened. And it makes it hard. But I also think we are you talk about that mimicking of the corporate world. So I think this one's really important. I think we should drill into this a little bit more. And the reason I say that is because it's built for a man's world. 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, does not functionally work if you are the person that is doing the bulk of the parenting and the bulk of the home life. Because I'm pretty sure in America, same as in New Zealand, kids are not at school or in childcare from 9 till 5. They tend to be 9 till 3 or some version of that. They might do after school activities and things like that. But it was not built for the primary caregiver to work and do all the primary caregiving. And so if we build our businesses based on that model, it was built for the man who was the one that was the primary earner, who had someone at home who cooked and cleaned and looked after the children and did all of that work for them. So if you're going to step into that role where you're going to be earning, fair chunk of maybe you're the primary income earner now. You can't do that and do everything that you were doing before, and you can't necessarily do it on the time frames that everyone else has told you. You don't need to build a 9 to 5 Monday to Friday business. I've got clients that are now, and it's something that we definitely look at is, can I build a business that works on school terms? Can I just work? So in New Zealand, we have like 9-week, I think it's 9-week, 9-week and a 10-week term. Can I run my business where my business works on a 9-week, 9-week, 10-week, 10-week like working session, and then we have these like cool down break periods where there's less working and more spaciousness to be at home when the kids are all on their holidays. So you can there's no rules around when are your working hours. There's no rules around when are your holidays. There's zero. Like take all the rules that were set up for a society that we no longer live in and throw them out the window and go, what would great look like for me and my family?
But that scares people too, because they've never had that option. It's like they are a deer in headlights. Like, what?
Yeah. And that's fundamentally why you have to figure out what matters to you and who matters to you, and then what matters to them, right? If you've got kids that are deeply into a specific sport, there'll be times of the years where that's very intense, or maybe you've got kids that are into music or drama, and so there's certain times of the year when a show gets put on and it's really intense, and so all that stuff about you and your family. No one can tell you that, so you need to know. You need to be honest and aware enough to look in the mirror and go, what do I need, and what do these people that matter to me need? What are the rhythms to their lives that are important to them now at the age and stage that you talked about before, and how do I build this business to serve that? Rather than I'm just going to build another job for myself, 9 to 5 Monday to Friday with no holidays and no sick pay and all of those things you don't get when you're working for yourself. You can do anything. Anything's possible, and I know that's scary, but it's also so empowering at the same time, because you could be available for all the things you wanted to be available.
Yeah.
That's a game changer.
Well, our time is almost up. I feel we could talk for much longer.
Yeah, we have.
You got the great energy. I love it. Which coming all the way from New Zealand, I can feel it. So if you had, a few takeaways that you want to stick with anybody listening to this episode, what would that be?
Yeah. So I guess if any of this has resonated with you and you're thinking, man, this life for me, this business for me is kind of getting away on me, and you're looking for some help, I've put together some resources for you. That's at sarahgreener.com and then /good enough. So over there, and there's a free copy of my book, The Off Switch.
I've downloaded it. I can't wait
to
read it. Yes.
Yeah. And so that talks you through all of these frameworks, which I think would be the most valuable for people when you say, oh, that blank page problem, like, what could I possibly do? It solves that. So that's there for you. There's a community there of women who are all doing exactly the same thing. And obviously, if you're just like, I'm totally overwhelmed by this and you'd like some help, I've got a 15-minute call where we do what we call the freedom game plan. So we look for the specific 3 things you could do right now that would take you from this kind of stuck, overwhelmed to what can you do. And fundamentally reach out, find yourself a community, get yourself some help, but don't stay where you're at. If you're feeling stuck and overwhelmed, staying in it just keeps you staying in it. Your indecision is a decision. It's a decision to stay where you're at.
Right. Well, it has been a pleasure to talk to you. I feel it's made my Monday better. It's like filled my bucket. So I thank you so much for your time, for being on the show and sharing your wisdom. I appreciate it. And I will leave all of your social links and your website and all that good stuff in the show notes. But where can they connect with you on social? Like Sarah Greener?
Yeah. So on Instagram, I'm Sarah Greener Coach. Okay. I'm the same on Facebook, and on LinkedIn, just Sarah Greener. Thankfully, it's not a name that's super common. So I'm the one in New Zealand.
One Sarah in New Zealand. That's it.
One Sarah Greener. Lots of Sarahs. I've got one of those names, Angela. It's very rare when I go into a room of people my own age where there's not like 5 Sarahs all in the same room.
I love it. Well, thank you for the wonderful conversation.
My absolute pleasure. It's been a blast talking to you.
Thank you. Thank you to Sarah again for the wonderful conversation. And I could just feel her energy all the way from New Zealand and her passion for helping business owners find time again in their business, so they can do the important things too. They can, have more of everything that they want to do in their business and their personal life. So I really love that. Thank you, Sarah. And if you found this episode inspiring and you learned something from it, it really resonated with you, it would be wonderful if you want to tag me and Sarah in a Instagram story or an Instagram message. You can tag me at Angela.Mashulli, MASCIULLI, and at Sarah Greener Coach. And I will leave all of our contact information in the show notes. And thank you again for joining me. Reach out to me on Instagram, send me an email. You can reach me at angela@mombusinesscoach.com. Check out the new website. I would love to hear from you. I've just gotten such wonderful messages. So don't be shy. Do it. Send that message. So thank you so much. Don't forget to subscribe and follow the show. It's totally free. And then share it with anybody else that you think might find it helpful. With that, this comes out the week of Valentine's Day. I just want to express all of my gratitude and love for anybody who has been on the show or been supportive of in any way, all of my listeners, anybody who's left a review, anybody who's commented on a post. I mean, you have no idea what that just means to somebody who is an entrepreneur or a business owner, or it just really means so much to just get one little response, some little reaction from the world, on what you're putting your heart and soul into. So I definitely put my heart and soul into this podcast, and I appreciate you guys so much. And I hope you have a wonderful Valentine's Day. Don't put too much into it. It should all be about love and happiness, and make it what you would like it to be. Do your thing. So with that, thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the Good Enough Mompreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Angela Michuli. I cannot wait to talk to you next week. I am going to share 3 things about creating more viral content that I learned at the PodFest convention that I went to last month. So I am looking forward to sharing that with you and trying to find ways to share all that I learned at the PodFest convention. And I have some interviews coming up with some amazing people that I met at PodFest. So look forward to that. And if you subscribe, you won't miss an episode. So with that, have the most wonderful day and the most wonderful week. I can't wait to talk to you again next time. Bye.